You can't combine them at all. You can't make a marker sword. That was the only good thing about Crayola. And I'm mad you can't do it here. Today we're going to be looking at the brush pen Ecoline watercolor markers, and yeah, I'm not a huge watercolor fan, but hey, I love markers, so I thought, why not give this a shot? I saw this at Michael's and I picked up 700, which is their black one, a while ago, and I actually really liked it, so I went back and picked up 738 and 717. Now, this is not their grayscale set. In fact, that is on sale on Amazon right now for under $17. But these markers are fairly expensive, ranging from $4 to $6 depending on where you go. And some of the larger packs, like the 20 packs, can sell for $22, and the 30 packs can sell for on average of $66. So that's quite a bit of money for some markers. But what really makes these special is the fact that they are watercolor. And I thought, you know what? With a grayscale, I think we could do some really cool, fun techniques inking. So I was originally going to use this sketchbook, but then I realized with the test we're going to do, probably not a good idea. So I got a piece of Bristol board right here. It's pretty smooth. There's a little bit of friction. I can kind of hear and feel it as I'm moving it across the Bristol board. But hey, that's pretty cool. And the line work is very consistent. Like, that is black. And then if you notice when we cross over, there's a little bit of streaking, so it's a little darker in this area. But hey, that's not bad. And then we can put it down. And it kind of sounds like a Sharpie. In fact, when I'm going over the line, I can notice there's some streaking. So when I did it closer on this one, you can see the streaking's not as bad. And here it's a little more obvious. And I'm wondering if that's a product of the fact that, hey, this is meant for watercolor, so you're not really going to draw. You're going to lay it down and then go over water to spread it out and create cool effects. But that is their 700. Let's try the other ones. 717. Very nice. I actually really like this gray. And I'm noticing that I might be able to actually make it darker in some areas. So here it started a little darker. And I think that's by how long I'm keeping it there. Our 737. Very light. You can, oh wow, you can't even see that on camera really. Let's fix that. So I spent like the last hour trying to balance this. This is the closest we're gonna get. But you can see how much lighter it is compared to the 717. So it is good to know that the numbers do have a meaning, and there is a reason why they're numbered. So you can use that for as your indicator when you're going through if you don't feel like swatching it, which I do appreciate. These are actually really nice. We're going to test the watercolor bit in a second, but I want to talk about the brush nib. The brush nib is really nice. Not the best one I've ever used. That still goes to the Copic Fineliners, but it is still a really good one. You get a good line variance, and for someone who's heavy-handed that tends to have trouble using a brush nib, it's pretty straightforward and easy to use. So really glad to say that the main method of using this marker doesn't suck. And now we're going to test its actual watercolorness by switching this piece of paper over and then bring out some water, which I have in my little cup right here. And we also going to need a brush. I'm thinking this one right here. Dip it in water, and of course we got our rag. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the black one first and go from black to gray to light gray. Just put the marker down and then cover it with water and see how it goes. I have not done this before, so I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. Oh, that's fun. So I could just spread it out. Put some more water here. That's fun. So its main gimmick works really well. Alright, here's like a little helix DNA. Let's add some water. And that's cool. I like that. Let's like tip it over to see can you get like a natural drain. Nope, we need more water for that. Okay, let's try that now. That's cool. It's more messy than I thought it would be, Like, I thought it'd be easier to spread out the packaging. So I know I showed a picture of it, but it showed like this more like blob mess, and I'm wondering if that was done on a canvas and then they actually like photoshopped out the canvas and put that on the packaging, or if they use it on normal paper or watercolor paper, because this is Bristol board, which takes ink super well. But if you remember the last time we did something like this, like an ink wash, we used the acrylic ink, and that ink warped the paper. So something I noticed, and I just tested it real quick, was that when I put down the color, so I'm going to put down a heavy black, and then I went in with another one, and they were touching, I kind of could pull the color, and you're seeing it right here, but I'll do a live demonstration. And that makes sense because these are using an ink that's wet, so it's taking advantage of that watercolor property by rehydrating it. Obviously not as much as the water is and spreading it out, but you could kind of create like a pseudo blend gradient, which is very interesting. I actually really like that. Let's try adding some light gray into it and see what we can do. Kind of pull this out and extend it. Yeah, there we go. That's a good example. If I use like the circle method, it really blends them well together. That's actually pretty cool. Let's try watercoloring that, and then let's also do just like a solid patch of black, because I really want to see what that looks like. Okay, so you just get like a big patch of gray. Let's try hydrating the black one. I really want to see what that would look like. Oh, that's cool. I like that. I really like this. This is really different from what I'm used to using. I am noticing some slight paper warpage, so that's something I have to keep in mind. But this is pretty cool. There's a lot you could do with this. Now, as someone who's trained more in the traditional comic book art style, the first thing that came to mind would be using this for some type of ink wash with like a battle effect or like a battlefield. So I have an illustration of an angel doing the superhero land, and I was thinking it would be interesting to actually go in and add that in with these markers to add the effect of the dust and debris, the destroyed ground, kind of create that look with these markers. Now, I'm not going to actually do the illustration only using these. I'm going to use Fineliners to do some of the more finer detail to actually bring out the angel. I'm also curious with how this would interact with alcohol markers. That's something I'm really curious about too. But overall, this is actually pretty cool, and it's very different from what I normally do. So let's start the time lapse and get started on the illustration, and I'll give you guys my final thoughts on these. And we're done. This piece took a lot longer than I thought. I thoroughly enjoyed the process of making this, but there were some problems with the markers, so let's talk about the bad first and then talk about the good. As you can see, it heavily warped my paper. Like, this thing is more warped than when we use the acrylic ink. And this stuff really warped the paper. Also, if you look closely on the piece, there's actually like these areas of what I could only describe as a rust color on it. Now, that comes from actually using the Artist Loft Sharpies in conjunction with the microns. That doesn't create that color on its own, but when you apply water or the markers themselves, it creates that rust. So do be careful with what you're using these with, as you can get really not good effects. Like, I don't like that rust, and now when I make my poster version of this, I have to go in and do extra work to make it look nicer. As you can see, it washed out a ton of the shading details. I'm lucky I took a picture of this before I started applying these markers, because I was going to color this in later. I'm really glad I did, because I lost so much detailing. The water washing and applying the markers just really made the ink disappear, and I don't know why. I've used alcohol markers before without that problem. However, there are a few positives I have to say. The actual gradient and blending and shading that I used on the wings came out amazing. Like, these markers made these wings look amazing. The battle smoky effect on the ground looks great, and on top of that, the nibs themselves, those brush nibs, are really great to use. They're great for putting it into a place, coloring stuff in, and then spreading it out with water. Overall, I would have to say I'm not 100% satisfied with how this piece came out. However, when I was in the editing stage to make it presentable for my art store, I decided to invert the colors, and, well, that just looks amazing. I love how this piece came out. When you invert the color scheme, it looks so good. So all three versions of this, the black and white version, the grayscale version, and the inverted grayscale version, will be available on my ArtStation account for a $1 digital download. Just click the link in the description down below to go check out my art store where you can buy all different types of artwork I make. In conclusion, I would have to say these markers are definitely for people that love watercolor, that love markers, and are doing more experimental artwork with different types of ink washes and different type of inking techniques, as that was really my mindset with these markers. However, I will admit that was more limited to what their true potential is in watercolor. And someone who is far more talented in watercolors can do way better than I can. I'm still more of an acrylic kind of paint guy. Do keep in mind the entry point for these markers are pretty high, and you have to pick up quite a bit to actually start doing more elaborate pieces of artwork and just more watercolor stuff, so do keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, I do recommend them, and I can see some really cool stuff coming out with these markers and some really cool artwork. I may pick up some more in the future and do a sequel view to this, talking about maybe some color packs, as they do have a few available. With that said, let me know what you guys think of not only the markers, but the artwork and different techniques that you would actually use with these markers. On top of that, like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more art and animation based content. I'm J-Rod of BATTLEBRAWLERproductions, and I draw with power and my own soul.